Welcome back. I'm talking more about X-Men because I like them. So X-Men 97 is great, and I think they should put the X-Men in the MCU. And you know what? I think they also kind of just have to reboot everything. Just restart. Just start over from the ground up. Make it X-Men focused because that's where the real candy is. And the X-Men has so many various characters that there's plenty of opportunity to focus on characters they just have never even done in any of the X-Men movies, or do characters that we have done that have shown up but I feel like have been done not very well, or not given the true time to shine that they have, or they haven't really delved into like what makes those characters, compelling and interesting. So I pulled up a list of the best 100 X-Men's ever, and I'm going to go through and talk about all the X-Men that I think should show up in the movies and what to do with them. I might not go through all of them, depending on if I have anything to say. Here we go. Number 1 is Wolverine, of course. I do think we have to have Wolverine at some point, but we've seen a lot of Wolverine already, and I really think we need to focus on other X-Men characters. If we're going to do Wolverine, I think the smart move is to focus instead on X-23. You can have Wolverine be there, but have him more of a background character, and focus on Laura Kinney, because there's a lot of stuff, like she showed up in Logan, but there's a lot more stuff we can do with her. She becomes Wolverine at one point, so make her the main Wolverine for a little bit. Logan can still be there, but put him more in the background. Cyclops, of course, you gotta kind of put him in there also. And he's a character that has been in a lot of the X-Men movies, but I feel like they haven't really done him justice. Again, go check out X-Men 97 to show how to do Cyclops good. But yeah, make his powers cooler, and don't just let him get cucked by Wolverine the whole time. Let him be his own character. Of course, Jean Grey is the other thing that connects Cyclops as well, and we've fucked up the Phoenix Saga twice already, so I'd say we just move away from that. If we're gonna focus on if Cyclops and Jean Grey are gonna be involved, I think what we do is make it more about Cable and that whole relationship and stuff. I think that would be the way to go, because again, just do the stuff they did in X-Men 97, whatever the show is called. Anyways, Rogue. Okay, Rogue we have technically seen in some of the movies, and they do a decent job of the thing that is of her main pathos, that is oh no, if I touch people I can take their powers, but also it might kill them. So that's kind of sucks, because it means I can't do normal things. So number 1, just do the thing where she steals Captain Marvel's powers so that she can fly around and punch people good. Also, I think that has the dual potential of making Captain Marvel a little more interesting. The other big thing with Rogue is that we need Gambit to be there so she can fall in love with Gambit, because that's the thing that is cool. That's one of the big things that makes her interesting. Also, she has a cool backstory where she was a villain initially. She was raised by Mystique and was a bad guy for a while. So put all that in there too. That's cool. That's good stuff. X-Men at its core is this really convoluted, melodramatic soap opera, but all of that leads to compelling character drama, and that's the shit that they should be focusing on. That and the social commentary stuff, which is also really strong. Gambit, of course, we technically saw him, but he sucked. So do Gambit again, but do it right this time. Make him cool. Make him Cajun. Show his powers in cool, exciting ways. Have him be in love with Rogue. There you go. Colossus has shown up in a bunch of the movies also. He was in Deadpool. He's probably better in Deadpool than he is in the regular movies, because he's barely in those. One of the big things about Colossus that I think is fun is his relationship with Kitty Pryde. Again, the relationships is what makes the X-Men fun and interesting, and them not doing several of the major relationships from the comics, I think is weird. I think Colossus and Kitty Pryde is a fun combination because he's made of metal and he's big and strong, and she's little and small and can walk through walls. He's a wall and she can walk through walls. That's a fun pairing. It's like a contrast or something. That's like a theme. That's like an idea or whatever. Do that. That's my thing. Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler was in X-Men 2 and he was great. They pretty much nailed it. And then Alan Cumming didn't want to come back because the makeup took too long. Which, fair enough, but still it would have been cool to see him. And he was in some of the prequels or what, the First Class timeline, whatever you want to call those. And he's fine in those as well. The main thing, I think, is give him swords. He's got a really cool power, plus he has swords a lot of the time in the comics, and that's cool. So do that. Just have him be cool. Team him up with Daredevil. I think they did that at one point in the comics, but that would be fun. Team him up with Daredevil. There you go. Beast. Again, Beast was in the movies for a fair amount, so I don't know that we necessarily need to focus on him too much. But if you do, make him more like the Kelsey Grammer Beast, where they just fucking nailed it straight out of the gate. He's smart. He likes reading books. He's intellectual, but he's also really strong and can kick ass when the time calls for it. Angel. Angel is fine. I'm not a huge Angel guy. He can fly. He turns into Archangel when Apocalypse shows up, which is kind of a cool redesign. But I don't know. I was thinking about this recently. He walks around and disguises himself with this like binder that like covers up his wings. And I'm like, that's a really interesting parallel to like how trans and non-binary people will sometimes wear a binder to cover up parts of their bodies that they're uncomfortable with. And I don't think that was even a thing. that at least it wasn't a very common thing when they invented Angel. But that's an interesting idea. I don't know. Play with that maybe. Iceman. He could shoot ice or whatever. I don't know. He's fine. He was in some of the movies already, so I think there's more interesting characters. Moving on. Banshee. We saw him in one of the movies. He can yell and fly. I don't know. He's fine, I guess. He's Irish. Storm. Storm is great, and they need to make the movie all about Storm. We need to see Storm on some level. I mentioned this in the other video, but she and Black Panther get married in the comics. I think that's a fun pairing. I also think it'd be cool to have her go toe-to-toe with Thor, because she's also worthy of Mjolnir because she's already basically Thor, but a lady. So, those are all cool things. Storm is a badass and is really cool, and they should do that. Here's the thing. Marvel, all of their best female characters are X-Men. So that's why it, outside of like a handful like Black Widow and Gamora and like Jessica Jones, it feels like there have been basically no good female characters on the MCU. It's because all of them are on the X-Men. That's why. Havoc, he's like Cyclops, but less interesting powers. He's Cyclops' brother. I don't know. I feel like you could probably skip him. Jubilee should be way cooler than she is. She can shoot fireworks, and she has a great design. And she's probably most well known for the 90s X-Men show. And even in that show, they don't really know what to do with her. She gets left at the base. They're like, and okay, for this mission, we need Wolverine and Rogue and Gambit and Storm and Cyclops. And Jubilee, you can stay back and guard the base. And that's like every episode of the original show. They do a little bit more with her in 97, but she also kind of takes a backseat to more interesting characters. Her powers are kind of cool, but I feel like they still haven't really figured out how to make them look cool. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with Jubilee. She's a mall rat from the 90s. Like, maybe just have her be around and I don't know. I don't know. She should be cooler than she is, but I don't know that much about her outside of the '90s show, and that show they don't really know what to do with her. So, moving on. Kitty Pryde I mentioned before. Also, she showed up briefly in a couple of them. She had a cameo in one or two of the early X-Men movies, and then is played by Elliot Page in X-Men 3. Team her up with Colossus. That's the pairing I want to see. Also put her dragon. What's her dragon called? I forget. She has a pet dragon. Do that. Do the pet dragon. I forget. It's got a complicated origin, but I don't. Whatever. Maybe just have her show up with the dragon and don't explain it. That'd be fun too. Betsy Braddock, aka Psylocke. Psylocke, I think, is a character that who should be one of the major characters that they focus on. Because she showed up briefly in Apocalypse, I think, but whatever, didn't do much with her. Make her like a main character, make her the main like psychic on the team, and she can also create like energy weapons and stuff. That's cool. Do that. Make her. That's a cool power. Have her do that. Have her be like the main psychic. She's got a cool look. Put Psylocke in. She's cool. Professor X, we got to do something with Professor X and Magneto, of course, but I think we put them more in the background because we've had several movies focusing on them already. Although their dynamic is really interesting and kind of the core to the team, but maybe do it like X-Men '97 style or Wolverine in the X-Men style, where like Xavier's dead or missing for now, and so the X-Men have to like figure shit out on their own. Quicksilver we've kind of done already, and again, the weird thing that they haven't done is done the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are Magneto's kids and they're Avengers, and that's a really easy way to connect the MCU to the X-Men, but they didn't do that for some reason. So I don't know at this point. I'd say just maybe do them. I don't know, because Quicksilver is really fun in the X-Men movies that he shows up in, but I don't know. We've seen it already, and he's just really fun and has cool powers. He's not that deep of a character in those, so I don't know. They could have done more with him, but they didn't. So I think we got to move on to other characters. X-23, I talked about. Make her the main Wolverine for a bit. Thunderbird. Oh yeah. So this is a Native American X-Man who joins the team at the same time as the big kind of revamp of the X-Men, where they bring in Wolverine and Colossus and Storm and Nightcrawler. So basically all the X-Men that you like, and also Thunderbird. Who exactly? I think their heart was in the right place, trying to include a lot more diversity on this roster of the team. And yeah, there's barely any Native American characters in comics in general, but especially superhero stuff. So, and the X-Men are already like a metaphor for diversity and marginalized communities and stuff. So it fits pretty well. And then they like introduce this guy. He's kind of generic powers, and then they kill him off 2 issues later. My pick there's been a couple other Native American X-Men characters. My pick would be Forge, because he's in X-Men '97. My main pitch is to just do X-Men '97. But he's a little bit more interesting. He doesn't come off as a stereotype, which I think is good. His power is interesting but kind of hard to show visually, but I think you could do something cool with it. Basically he can like invent things. He can like figure out how to invent and build different machines and stuff. So that is hard to show visually, but I think it could be interesting and cool if done well. So there's potential there for Forge. Plus, then you have Native American representation, which is a demographic sorely lacking in the vast majority of movies, at least like Hollywood movies, but uh, also in sci-fi, fantasy, superhero stuff as well. What else we got? Sunspot. Sunspot's in X-Men 97, and he's pretty good. He's another mutant. He's another character that can fly around and shoot fire. There's a lot of those characters already in the Marvel universe, but actually in the MCU right now, there's not that many. So sure, throw him in. Why not? Sunfire, another one who's literally just has those same powers basically. He's Japanese, so you get some other representation there. His costume's kind of bad, but I think you could figure out how to revamp it a little bit and make it look better. So, sure, I don't know. Blink. I don't know much about Blink, but she has cool powers, and they gave her. She was in Days of Future Past, and her powers are cool. So yeah, I don't know. You could do more with that probably. Deadpool. We've seen a lot of Deadpool, but I think we'll continue to see more of Deadpool, and that's fine. I just want to see other characters also. Firestar. Okay, whatever. Cable. Cable we did see in Deadpool 2, and he was pretty cool. But I think there's a lot of the big dramatic stuff with him, with his parents, Scott Summers, and a clone of Jean Grey that I think is really interesting, and they should do more with. Also, you can bring in Mr. Sinister, which I think would be a fun villain. He's kind of one of the big X-Men villains they haven't really done in any of the movies yet, so that feels like a good villain to start with. And we can, of course, always do Magneto, who is great as well. What else we got? Emma Frost. Emma Frost has shown up a couple times in the X-Men movies, but they've done her dirty both times. She's an interesting character. She's another psychic X-Man. There's a bunch of those, but she can also turn her skin into diamonds, which is kind of cool. She started out as a bad guy and then eventually turned a good. So that's a fun angle. And because of that, her morality is a lot more gray a lot of the time. She's a lot more down to use her powers to fuck with people because she's psychic and can do that. And that makes for an interesting hero because you're like, do I agree with you? Are you the good guy actually? So I don't know. That's a character that we've technically seen, but definitely needs to be done better. So, yes. Forge, I talked about a little bit. Dazzler. Dazzler's an interesting character because she's not really a fighter. She's a pop star who can turn music and sound into light and energy. So she uses her dazzling powers to do cool light shows during her concerts and stuff. And the X-Men are they come to recruit her, and she's like, I kind of got a good thing going here with my music career. So it's kind of like if Taylor Swift had superpowers but just kept being Taylor Swift, occasionally would come and help the X-Men save the day, but most of the time was just recording albums and stuff. She's also a character that I think has been whose powers I think are really tricky to make interesting in comic format because they're all based around sound and music. And that's, you can't hear a comic. Believe me, I've tried. But that's really easy to do in a movie form where you can hear stuff. So there's a lot of potential there. I recently read this one X-Men story. It was called because I've been reading a lot more X-Men recently because I remembered I like X-Men. It's called Extreme X-Men, and Dazzler along with a few other characters end up on this like multiverse jumping adventure. And there's this one part where she fights this alternate version of Thor, and she's able to turn the sound of Thor's thunder back against him in like the form of this light energy. And I'm like, that's cool. That's a cool use of her powers. do something with that. I don't know. Domino we did see in Deadpool 2, and she was pretty cool. I'd be down for her to come back in some capacity. Yeah. Juggernaut we also saw in Deadpool 2, and that was a pretty good depiction of Juggernaut. In the comics, he's Xavier's like half brother, and I feel like they should do something with that because that's kind of interesting. Also, his powers are unnecessarily complicated. Like instead of just being a mutant, like every other X-Men character, he has like this magic gem that gives him powers, which is like weird and I feel like unnecessary. Just make him a mutant, and he's really strong and big and can and he's the Juggernaut bitch. I would say like if you're gonna do Juggernaut, do the thing where it's like, oh right, he's related to Xavier, like one of our main characters. Legion is interesting. They did a whole show about him that's really weird and wacky and different. I think you could do something with him. He's also Xavier's son, so I think there's something interesting there. Like that's the other idea I had is like make it about Xavier's son instead of Xavier, because we've seen Xavier before. So do something a little different. I don't know. That show is really cool. It's also pretty different from the comics as well. There's a lot of other stuff to it, but there's definitely potential. But I'd be down to see more with him. I don't know. Mystique is a really interesting character, and they really over focused on her in the movies, especially with the Jennifer Lawrence stuff, which kind of backfired because she as soon as she got the Hunger Games, she immediately stopped wanting to be in the X-Men movies, but kept showing up anyways. Again, a big part of what I think makes her interesting is the like complicated family drama, soap opera stuff. She ended up raising Rogue for a while. She's also gay, and canonically she's Nightcrawler's biological father, which is like really interesting and weird. And I want them to do that in the movies. I think it would be crazy if they did, but it would also be kind of cool. So do that. Who else we got? Namor. Yeah, you could do something with Namor. He's technically a mutant or whatever, but he's also from Atlantis. It's confusing. I don't know. He was really cool in Black Panther 2, so maybe do something with Namor. Polaris. So Polaris is Magneto's other daughter that you haven't heard of. She has green hair and the same powers as Magneto. Magneto has multiple illegitimate children because he gets around, because he's a daddy. We all know it. Polaris, I think, could also be cool. My other idea was like have it be about Polaris and Legion, like trying to start a new X-Men team and like trying to reestablish the friendship that their fathers once had until they had their big falling out or whatever. I think there's a potential story there. Yeah, Polaris is also a character that like, oh, Magneto has another kid that we never hear about. That's probably, I feel like you could do something with that. So there you go. That's an angle to work from. Armor. Oh yeah, Armor's kind of cool. She's another Wolverine sidekick, like Jubilee and X-23 and Rogue and Kitty Pryde to some extent, depending on the era and the version. Yeah, she can like make an avatar of herself that's like bigger, and forms an armor. She's kind of cool. You could put her in. Danger. Oh, Danger might be interesting. It's pretty wacky though. So Danger is the Danger Room, the like the sometimes holodeck, sometimes just a bunch of booby traps room that the X-Men train in, but it's like the AI of that room becomes sentient and creates a body for itself and like becomes a villain, but then joins the team, and it's kind of just Ultron but for the X-Men. It's kind of a fun idea. You could maybe do something with that, but it is also just kind of Ultron but for the X-Men. So I don't know. But also, they should be doing more with Ultron to start with. So, maybe that's a way to start. Bunch of other characters I don't know very well. Oh, yeah, Marrow. Marrow has kind of interesting powers. She can create, like, bone spikes. Kind of like Spike from X-Men Evolution, original character to that show, who I hate. He sucks. But Marrow's kind of cool. You could... A visually interesting power that's very distinct. And yeah, you could do something with her. Morph. You could maybe do Morph. Morph was an original character to the X-Men series, like the X-Men 90s series. And then I think he eventually showed up in the comics. In X-Men 97, they've like sort of loosely confirmed that he's non-binary, which is kind of interesting. But of course, he still uses like he, him pronouns, and they don't say non-binary in the show because the show takes place in the 90s, and that wasn't really a concept yet, even though he's a shapeshifter, so like he can be both male and female, and another way of describing that is non-binary. So that makes sense. Initially, in the original show, I think it was just that he can shapeshift, and he just has the same powers as Mystique, basically. But then in 97, they've like, I think just to make it more visually interesting, they've made it that he can like mimic the powers of other characters also that he shapeshift into, which is kind of cool. And it's allowed them to like throw in a few extra like cameos of other characters, because it's just like, oh, Morph decided to morph into whoever. So yeah, there's some visual stuff that could be kind of interesting there. Again, this would be, as far as I'm aware, the only non-binary representation that they could throw into the Marvel universe, which would be kind of cool. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a little mixed on that, because I feel like he is kind of a very X-Men 90s animated series specific character. But if you wanted, you could do something interesting with him in the movies as well. So sure, why not? There's some other characters listed here that I don't know very well. So whatever. Is there any other X-Men's that I think they should do? I don't know. Those are some of the X-Men's, and there's a lot of them, and there's many more. What are your favorite X-Men's? Who did I forget to talk about? Leave a comment or whatever. The point is that there are many, many X-Men characters, and many that have not even shown up in the movies, and many that have shown up in the movies, but they haven't really done very much with, because the movies have been so Wolverine-centric. So there's like so much potential here that I really want to see. I really want to see them do more stuff. Put more X-Men in the movies. What are you doing not doing that? That's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Go watch the other X-Men video that I did recently. And I'll see you next time with something else. Bye-bye.